episode of Arc Live. We're here back at Network School after an incredible week in Davos, and we're going to dive straight into it. Britt, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Why are you here?
It's a great question. Why are any of us here?
I think there's like a wide range of answers, to be honest, to that. What's yours particularly?
Well, I ended up here. We were actually looking for a World School hub to come pop up at, and I was at DevConnect in Argentina, and some friends had been here for the summer and said that I needed to come check this out first. And alas, here we are. I think I came originally with the intention of just generally upskilling and building some small tools that I wanted to work on, and it's evolved a lot from there.
Yeah, you use I use the word we quite a lot, right? But I think the way that I use the word we and you use the word we is a little bit different. Who is we when you talk about we?
We is me and my two daughters. I came here with an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. Which I think is fairly unique. They're the only full-time.
Can you text them to come in, and join in?
They're actually upstairs playing board games while OpenClaw installs on Omega's computer.
Wow.
So it's definitely a unique network school type experience.
Because had they been coding before coming here?
Not coding. They had participated in a niche global hackathon though. They submitted a completely non-technical project about making specifically Web3 spaces more kid-friendly.
Okay.
Even won a bounty from Polygon for doing so.
Very cool.
But then when they actually got here, one of the things they were most excited about was learning how to vibe code. So specifically my 10-year-old has been fully immersed in every single class, only kid in the room.
Yeah.
And they actually submitted a project at the Vibe Coding Hackathon last month.
Yep.
Which was actually the second project that they built. The first one, Araya built one completely on her own. It was a quiz app that she'd come up with and came here with the intention of building. And it's been amazing, really.
And you're being quite humble here, right? But in this hackathon competition, where did your daughters place?
First place.
First place, of course, right? You know, I mean, it's demonstrative of the meritocratic nature of NS that it's not ageist, it's purely best sort of player wins. But that is pretty incredible. I mean, one of the things I increasingly talk about to people outside of NS is I feel it's quite different to other pop-up experiences where people come and they actually leave with outcomes. Right, and I feel it's very diverse, the different outcomes that people can kind of come with. But I think a couple of the most typical outcomes are: one, you come here never having done anything technical in your life, and two, you have left knowing how to build apps that you may even have people using. Right, I think that's one outcome that happens a lot, and I think the second outcome is massive health benefits. I would sort of say I think these are the two ones that I think happen most, kind of being here. But yeah, again, it's again, your daughters have come here and have that outcome. Not that you're leaving at the minute, right? So they had enough fun for you to stay for month 2.
Yeah, absolutely. We were only supposed to be here for January. We had a ticket out and everything. But like you were saying, I mean, not only are they leaving with these technical skills, my youngest is waking up for 7 a.m. burn every single morning and is sometimes doing 2 burns in a day. And so, yeah, they're absolutely getting the full NS experience and participating in the classes and leaving. I mean, when we first got here, we got a little sick that first week, and my oldest went to the vibe coding class without us, without me and my youngest. And as soon as my youngest fever broke, the first thing she did was hop in the bed with my laptop to show her what she'd learned in vibe coding. And it's amazing to watch that just general excitement happen when they can create and make their imagination real in new ways. And now, I mean, it's every single breakfast. Oh, Mom, I have a new app idea. I know exactly what I want to build next. Can I get Rami to sit down with me and do office hours? And they're really soaking it all up.
They do get to be more normal kids as well. I think one of my first interactions with your daughters was being requested to judge a dollhouse building competition that had taken place between several other children that were sort of like here.
Oh yeah.
I haven't, judged children sort of like before, and was slightly concerned about my verdict. I don't think I upset anyone, and I did choose a winner. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think it's one of the things I actually like about being here is that I typically interact with a child, every day, and they are sort of like integrated in the experience in a way. How scalable that integration is remains to be sort of like seen. But okay, so Britt, like, okay, so yeah, right, go back to why did you come here? Like, what are you working on, I guess?
I came here because I'm in sort of this pivotal moment in my career where I have space to figure out what it is I want to do next. And I've been doing a lot of consulting, but I've been homeschooling and world schooling specifically for the last 10 years. And it's not a new thing, right? People have been doing this for 15, 20 years. And ironically, actually have been popping up essentially network states all around the world for a lot longer than we've been talking about network states in tech. There's a big gap in the ability to convey the quality of a child's experience or education when they're learning in a non-traditional institution. In traditional institutions, you have transcripts and things that can pass through systems that exist. But whether someone's learning entirely out of the traditional system or partially, they're doing extracurriculars or they're having unique experiences, there isn't a real way to convey that today. Mm-hmm. And I do truly believe that the way that we're going to push past that and create a solution is via documenting experiences on chain. So I've been pretty deep into Web3 and the crypto space for some time. I'm well known for bringing my kids with me to these spaces, which truly is just using my comfort in disrupting things to hopefully create easier paths for people that want to do it and aren't as comfortable sort of bringing a kid to a space that's not ready for one or not openly ready for one. But I want to build a ledger that allows, for my own children and all these other children that are learning outside the traditional system to convey the quality of their experiences and the quality of their knowledge in a ledger type environment where attestations sometimes come from the teacher or the parent or the child themselves. And ultimately, I think that becomes the end of LinkedIn and CVs and filling out applications, because you can choose to expose those qualities in a curated way for whatever opportunity they are trying to approach, whether that's academia or a job or something like that. And then even beyond that, to create an Oracle-like experience where you can just query into a system whether the human is ready for this new opportunity or is the best fit. And I came here to upskill so that I could actually create that beyond knowing it needs to exist and honestly needing that solution amongst others.
Have you been able to do any coding yourself, or are you too busy, like having all your tools requisitioned by your daughters?
My laptop has been thoroughly commandeered because it turns out you cannot run Cursor on Chromebooks. And the amount of credits I'm going through is insane. They're not asking for allowance money to go shopping in the markets or anything like that. They're asking for credits.
Yeah, right. So this is going to be a direct
Cursor, if you want to hand over some credits.
Exactly. Cursor, look, Anthropic, Gemini, OpenAI. We're looking for the first credit sponsor for ARC at Network School. If you are listening, we will, again, the type of customers that you can help. It would be incredible. Yeah, we are. They actually all have programs. In fairness, we're actually going through the program.
They're actually mostly limited to uni students. So that's the issue that we've had.
Venture-backed startups, they don't all have programs, but like Claude, for example, has a venture-backed program where if you are venture-backed startups, then they have the Claude for Startups. It's like all the big tech companies have always had cloud credits, and this is no one wants cloud credits, everyone wants AI credits right now, right? So it's There are there, yeah. We're in the process. Yeah. So we match, right? They like to work with partners that are then sort of like a filter for the underlying kind of like startups, which should be getting stuff and aren't just using them to like, historically, you know, you get given like $100,000 of AWS credits and then someone would like set up a Bitcoin mine or whatever, right? You know? And so like, that's not what it's for, right? But anyway, so that's on our job list. That's what we're working on that in a minute. But anyway, back to this. Yeah, have you been able to make progress here? Like, has it been a good place for you to be to kind of like take, you know, this, you know, I guess that the work that you want to do, you know, with Adventure forwards?
Yeah, actually, I mean, it's interesting to see how my focus has evolved here. Or truly, when I came, I thought it would be more of an isolated experience where I was taking courses and going to quietly build. But as soon as we showed up, I was immediately, I guess, given the information that there is a huge yearning from the prospective and past NS community to build more infrastructure so that other families can do what we're doing here and have the types of resources that we need, which is really interesting because that's, you know, sort of based on what my daughters proposed at ETH Bogota so many years ago, has always been a conversation that I've continued within the Web3 and blockchain space specifically, but to make infrastructure for children in these spaces, and not just your typical daycare, right? Like drop them off and somebody's taking care of them, but to truly create spaces where kids can absorb content and learn all this infrastructure and cool tools that we're able to use, because it's amazing, you know, we're mostly adults here, and we can be very creative and very imaginative, and especially we've got all these new tools to use. There's a lot that we can build. But it's amazing what you can give a child that doesn't have those mental constraints. If you can give them the information about what's possible and what can be built, the way that their brains think is just so expansive. So I have actually spent less time building my app that I was thinking I was coming to build, and more time really iterating on how do we continue to make spaces like this and conferences and other network states and pop-up cities more friendly for families and for people, bringing in Gen Alpha, not just so that we can have the families be present, so that we can cultivate this whole new generation of builders, because typically in the hackathon type environment, you know, we're investing very heavily in giving, you know, college age people access to tools and investing in them having exposure. But it's amazing if you can start cultivating that interest and excitement at a younger age, at 10, 11, 12, by the time they're 18, they're ready to go ship. You know, they're not just starting to absorb these tools, they're native to them. They're not new.
Break even, you know, within a year or so, you know, like getting expensive. I was always like, look, I feel like my kids should be break even from a lemonade stand at the end of the garden by, you know, by the age of 6 or 7, right? Like there shouldn't be but no, I can judge. Right, Gen Alpha, what even is Gen Alpha? Is that the one after Gen Z?
It's the one that comes after Z.
Like, I'm separated enough from Gen Z. Is there really now another generation would exist?
It is called Gen Alpha. The elementary, middle schoolers of today, even the young high schoolers, I don't know exactly where the cutoff is, but they are Gen Alpha. They're absolutely tech native. They are largely being raised in a different way, where Gen Z sort of got unfettered access to technology because it became so prevalent in their childhood, and there weren't a lot of recommendations or suggestions on how to manage that. Where Gen Alpha, we see some of that. We also see a lot of millennials going back to like 90s style parenting, really not introducing technology until later, 7, 8, 9 years old, which is funny because a lot of people will quickly say, well, how are they going to know how to use tech? I raised my kids in a very interesting way, considering I've been building smart homes and working in tech their entire life. They largely haven't had access to any screens, very intentionally, unless they're FaceTiming family. But the interesting part is they can still tell their grandma on FaceTime how to connect the printer via Wi-Fi, even though they're not using it. It's so native to them. And you know, the biggest builders we have today, you know, Silicon Valley, we didn't grow up with tech. So it's not lack of exposure that creates inadequacy. I think at those early years, we can focus on things like logic and systems and just general understanding to create tech adept kids that have creative imaginations that sometimes screens can limit.
It is pretty crazy because yeah, like I spent so much of my childhood. I went to more normal schools, but I spent so much of my time outside. You know, that was like, yeah, that was the main, you know, that was the main recreational habit, you know, in varying different ways in the English countryside. Okay, so how old are people at Gen Alpha?
You're asking me for something I don't know entirely.
Is it just like 0 to 20? Is it like 0 to 50? I don't know.
I know mine are 2015, 2017 babies. I'm pretty sure it goes as far back as at least 2013, 2012.
But how old are your daughters roughly then?
8 and 10.
8 and 10, right? And they've been able to have a great sort of like time sort of like here. But like, why haven't these, again, I'm this world school stuff that you talk about it, like I'm sort of like naive kind of like too, right? So it's like, why haven't these like worlds clashed like more, right? Like we've been in this, again, you've been in these pop-ups, you know what all this sort of stuff, where these people, you know, our community is increasingly going to places for longer period of times. Lots of people in our community do have kids. Like, why isn't there more infrastructure for them? Like, what is the world school stuff? Why hasn't it clashed? What's going on?
That's actually like one of the most interesting things to me right now, because world schoolers have been creating these pop-up communities, mostly because they're looking for this next evolution of society where they can find somewhat like-minded people that want to live outside of traditional norms for a variety of reasons. And interestingly enough, you know, almost all of them are digital nomads. You know, they're in our tech space, but we've lived so isolated for so long. And that's one of the things that's most interesting to me is identifying like how do we bring these worlds together? Because one is, you know, very specifically most interested and targeted at the younger generation, at Gen Alpha, young Gen Z, and more of the pop-up city incubator type is elder Gen Z and younger millennial types. And I'm really, I guess ultimately you asked why I'm here now. When I go backwards, I'm here because I want to understand how we do bring those worlds together because they at this point kind of need to merge. And so far back as, you know, 2022, I think it was for Bogota, I was also working on a very education family centric project for that hackathon. And we polled the entire contingent at the hackathon. And over 87% expected to either have their own children or be responsible for children in some way within the next 10 years, which means if we look 10 years out from now, we have this giant community that's traveling around the world constantly for hackathons and network states. Either we need to build the infrastructure for families and children, or we're going to lose some of our most intelligent minds that are choosing to stay home, or we're going to force them to not get to participate in family life and parenthood, which I will tell you, it's pretty awesome. It's amazing to be able to be part of that too. And I've never believed you should choose one or the other. Like you know, so far back as 10 years ago was bringing my child to tech conferences and instigating that they create nursing rooms, like things that were inconceivable even to technology industries that were very focused on, you know, creating more space for women in the industry and were interested in bringing them in, were simultaneously unaware of the need to provide resources like a rider on insurance at a conference to make sure that a woman can push a stroller in. Like that's a real thing. I saw a colleague of mine get her entire conference education ticket. It's like a $1,500 ticket refunded to her on the spot because she walked in with a child in a stroller and it had nothing to do with their preference or opinion. The insurance rider did not allow them to cater to somebody that had signed up for education and had a small human with them. So yeah, these worlds need to collide, and I think that's a lot of the journey that I'm interested in being on. Because I mean, just on Facebook alone, you're talking about 60, 70,000 world schooling families, and that's very similar to what we have going on the Web3 blockchain crypto circuit too.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting. Like a lot of this stuff is again like that Web3 circuit didn't exist. You know, at least it didn't exist 10 years ago. And so again, it's like it's like a new community and a new style of sort of like life. And I guess like, yeah, it's very, very difficult. But okay, so again, what are your next steps? What's the plan right now? What are you going to do on this?
So we have a sort of agenda of the coming year on places that we're going to make child-friendly spaces for, try and open up space at pop-up communities, conferences, and network states that either attendees have to forego or attend for a shorter amount of time because they can't bring their family. We're getting these spaces set up to create enriching and educational environments for 7 to 15-year-olds, also younger, 0 to 6 in some environments as well, with true content for children, like actual panels and workshops and getting them exposure to what we're doing. And then vice versa. Actually, it's really interesting if you ask a founder to explain what they're building to a young person. It's a great mental exercise to have to rethink the jargon that we're using recently and answer why at least 5 times. But why? But why? And it really can help you as a founder break things down. So we're creating spaces on the upcoming Web3 tech circuit, network school circuit, or network state circuit, I should say. And I'm excited to talk more about what that's going to happen.
That's very cool. So, okay, so who should reach out to you? Where do people find you? What should someone come and help you with? Like, yeah, what's your call to action for the viewers?
So, I mean, you can find me on just about every platform as Britt in Tech, BRITT in Tech. My DMs are open on everything. I am really interested in finding people that are also passionate about enabling Gen Alpha to be tech literate, to create spaces for families. Any founders or executive level types at foundations that have their own families and are interested in providing any like grant or sponsorship support for these spaces would be really helpful. But just anyone that's excited about engaging the next generation while we're building would definitely be it.
No, it's very, very cool. And yeah, maybe watch this space for the first kids residency at ARC. I guess we'll see. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Likewise.
More to come. Thank you, Britt. Oh, yeah. Okay. So yeah, actually, on that one, if you have kids and you are thinking about coming to network school, it really can work. And actually, I think what's great is there's loads of people in the community that are willing to have those kind of like little conversations with you before you make the jump to maybe like ease any concerns or anxiety you have about bringing children here. And I'm sure Britt will not mind you reaching out to ask her kind of like directly. And again, if you're interested potentially, for example, in coming to Montenegro with kids, do ping me. We're building a kids waitlist, and maybe we've got the first kids residency happening there. So steamrolling straight on. Oh man, how you doing?
Awesome.
Nice to see you. Okay, so kids, how many?
Kids, 0 kids for right now. Yeah.
That's probably a little bit more typical. We're going to change the kind of topic here a little bit. Mehul, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. What are you building?
2 companies right now. One is an algorithmic trading company, and then the second one is a sports tech company that we pitched last week with. Yeah.
Which one is your favorite?
The favorite one is the sports one. That's the more, I guess, impactful one. The more challenging one, I guess they're both challenging, but the more like brain useful one or like brain using one is the algo one.
Well, okay, let's start with the most interesting one. We don't want to bore the viewers, right? But let's talk about your background, because you are Zimbabwean,
yes.
Is that correct? And then you, tell me, don't let me tell your story, but please, yeah.
So originally from Zimbabwe, born and raised there, so 20 years there. And then I moved to the US primarily for university. So I went to UCF in Florida. I studied aerospace and mechanical, but I quickly realized that when I was doing aerospace and mechanical, you can't really get a job in the US because it's defense. Sure. And I had to pivot and basically went into finance. So I eventually ended up at Goldman for 2 years, kind of worked my way there, ended up working back in engineering at Ryobi, Milwaukee Power Tools and drills and whatnot, building stuff for them. Then I said, let's take a leap of faith and start building the trading company, which I did. And that's kind of how I ended up leaving the 9 to 5 and building like startups and companies in the space.
So that's the less interesting company, right? Which is the trading kind of like company. Yeah. And is there anything worth diving into with that, other than that, like, hey, doing a good job with a trading company? Yeah,
that one we're doing great with, and we're actually at NS. I wasn't expecting to come here for that. I was expecting to come mainly for the sports thing, but we got more clients here at NS than we got for the sports side of things. So we have more traction here, growing that one just because it's so organic. People they see a return, they're like, "Can I get that too?" And I'm like, "Sure, yeah. If you want, you can get that too." But the sports one, I went on scholarship too when I went to the US for sports, for golf. Played pretty high ranking golf for a lot of years. But I couldn't pursue that at the higher stages because it cost a lot. It was costing a lot to go to university, plus to play golf, and I had to make a decision. Like, if I want to stay long term in the US, how do I get a visa? Am I going to get a visa through like the golf route and go pro and do all that stuff? What's the likelihood of that? Or do I go the educational route? So I had to stop that and then kind of go the educational route with that.
But you had this experience being a semi-professional athlete, I guess like an amateur athlete at the NCAA type level, right? And that gave you a whole bit of background that you're now sort of like leveraging and exploiting for what you're building now on the more interesting side.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing. So we're building Protosphere. So Protosphere is basically came about from my algo background and my sports background. So we have an algorithm that gives athletes a valuation, and that valuation can help them get brand deals. If I was in college, I would basically use Protosphere, get a valuation from them, say I'm worth like $200,000 or $300,000 as an athlete. I would work in getting brand deals whilst I'm in college. So these brand deals can fund my journey and potentially get me to the pro level versus me sidetracking and going into education. So a lot more athletes can pursue what they're doing and pursue their love for sports, essentially.
But that's super. So let's dive into a little bit more, right? Because actually you're at this like pretty interesting point where you are, starting to kind of like motor with this. It looks like you've kind of like found something, right?
Yeah.
So like talk to me through like from an athlete's perspective, like let's start with, right? Like I'm playing golf at the NCAAs. Why would I care about Protosphere?
Yeah, so we call it digital presence. So this day and age, everyone is on social media. They're all trying to monetize themselves on social media, whether we like it or not. I guess Ark is on there, I'm on there. Like, we're trying to get views from people, we're trying to get buy-in from people. And in the athlete space, that is a whole new space that they can now tackle into as of 2 years ago. So they can get monetized. So they're looking to build a digital presence. They don't have a resume. Everyone in work, right? We have LinkedIn. We can go to LinkedIn, we can go find jobs, we can get a valuation, we can get a salary. We know what we're worth. Athletes don't know that. And that's what we're building.
No, okay, that's interesting. And I guess this is what's interesting as well, is like the timing of this, right? Because again, like when I was a college athlete, I mean, NCAAs, I don't even know what it stands for. It's like National College Athlete Association. Right.
Yeah.
And it's actually historically, if you were in the NCAAs, you couldn't earn money, right?
Yes.
You couldn't have a paid contract. You weren't going to have brand sponsorships. You were sort of sheltered. And then if you graduated, did the draft and went into kind of like pro football, then or whatever pro sports, then you could, right? But this has now changed where the laws are no longer in place and you can monetize yourself as an athlete now at like college level, right?
So the gap opened up 2 years ago. So like the market wasn't there, it didn't exist because the laws didn't allow it to exist. And as soon as 2 years ago, they just literally opened up a whole new market. So it was never an opportunity, and now it is, and we got to pounce on it, basically.
But it's a big opportunity. I think like what's difficult unless you've been to the US is you don't realize how big college sports are in the US, right?
Yeah.
It's like in the UK, like nobody cares like what, the only thing in the UK, they might care like if Oxford and Cambridge do the rowing race, right, each year, right? That's about it in college sports, right? In your, again, like I have spent a lot of time in Austin. I've got family there, right?
Okay.
And actually, right, okay, Austin, like, it's just a college sports town. It's like every single person in that town supports the college team. There is not a professional team that people sort of like support, right? What is the actual like market size? It's like if you're looking at like college football in the UK in terms of soccer, right? Like college soccer would be like so trivial. It would be a rounding error, like 0.001% of like the market, with the Premier League and all the national leagues taking 99.9%. In the US, it's not 50-50, right? But it's like, it's really meaningful what college has. Do you know that split?
So I know the split between soccer and football. So soccer in the US or globally is like the market size is 40 billion. And the college space of it in the US is roughly like 12 billion. So they're a massive piece of the entire soccer space. And soccer being global, if that's 40 and we're almost at halfway to that 40 mark with just the US college space, it's a massive opportunity.
Yeah, it's obscene. And this is, so I think, understand it's a really, really big deal, right?
Exactly.
And again, if you're a player, and again, like, right now, yeah, it's like, how do you know what you are worth and how do you monetize, I
Yeah.
guess, right? And like, you're helping them do this.
Yeah, so it's price discovery. So right now it's open market. No one really has it done yet or nailed down. So our goal is at Protosphere is to become the standard for valuation. If we are the standard, NCAA can basically say we're backed by Protosphere and we are the valuation for all athletes across America. And if we do that, then we're set. And that's basically out of what our goal is to do. Yeah.
And that's where we're at. Again, like you've been self-funding this sort of like to date, right?
Yes,
And
all
you've got like
bootstrap.
a team sort of like behind this.
Yes,
And again, you're just, I mean, maybe, do you want to talk about the kind of like the moment you are at and like any traction? It's sort of like up to you, I guess, like what you want to say there.
Yeah. So right now we're pre-seed. We have a lot of traction. We have traction from some of the biggest universities in America. We grew since joining NS, basically, and ARC. So we had 400 athletes. Now we're basically 10x that with the last contract that we signed. And basically, the team has been all self-funded. However, self-funding can only go a certain way. Like we can't keep bootstrapping, but we need buy-in, not from just VCs, but we need buy-in from professional athletes. We need someone of higher caliber that can add to our brand value and just be like, hey, look, we actually have 2 former NFL like Super Bowl ring holders on our team.
Yes.
So we want more of those. We want Olympians. We want people that have played at the World Cup to just be like, hey, we support these guys. They're gonna basically change the trajectory of youth athletes, and I want to back them. And whether it's monetary, whether it's name, whether it's branding, we want those type of people to kind of join us.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Again, this is it because college sports is who traditionally has basically been able to capture the value being created in college sports has been the colleges themselves.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess like again, I'm less aware of like how that market's changing now as like players are able to monetize themselves. But I think still basically, right, like colleges are like, they care a lot about this product as well because they want their athletes to succeed, right?
Yeah.
So I guess if you're a college, if you're a college looking here, right, and you've got thousands of athletes on campus, like why do they care about this?
That's a perfect question because we got asked this last week as well. And we didn't realize this until we started pitching colleges. We were going straight to athletes themselves, and then we started going to colleges, and we were like basically saying to them that we are noticing a change in the demographic and the mindset of athletes, that they're not just going to this university because it's prestigious, it's Harvard, it's this, it's that. They're going to there because they're seeing that the value of their soccer team at Harvard is probably more valuable than the soccer team at Stanford, for example. And the value is basically the cumulative monetary value of all those athletes in that team. So by us getting valuations on these athletes, so UCF can basically say that our team, our men's soccer team is worth 20 million versus a USF soccer team, the one in Tampa, they're worth 13 million. Athletes can, from the youth stage, can actually see that and make a decision for themselves. Do they want to go here or do they want to go here? And of course, universities want to partner and have the best monetary value team.
Yeah, there's loads there, man. Like, yeah, I used to be involved with this thing called On Deck, which was sort of like
It was On Deck?
On Deck.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not related to sports, but it's just like a talent magnet. And On Deck used to be the first place the best founders go before they start their next venture, right?
Okay.
And one of the interesting things is that if you're exceptional, taking even 2 months off to work on something and bootstrap yourself like has an opportunity cost, and you do need a level of wealth to be able to kind of like afford that, right?
Right.
And so we were looking at ways that we could like, do early like income sharing agreements, whatever, so that we can like basically fund these people and then have a part of their upside in the future so that they can take these risks themselves, right? Otherwise they're just like financially not accessible to them without kind of like some sort of support, right?
Right.
But then it's like really interesting, like all of these questions, like moral questions that come up of that, right? Where it's like, you're not funding or financing or monetizing companies, you are funding or financing or monetizing human beings, right? And it seems like you're on a bit of a vector to be hitting like very, very similar kind of situations where like you talked about your personal story, right? That like fucking playing golf is expensive.
Yeah.
Well, actually, if you're super talented and where I can see that your valuation should be extremely high on this platform, like maybe I can invest.
Right.
Maybe I own you for the rest of your life. Talk a little bit about the morality of that and how you might see that evolving.
So I think it's evolving in the space of more like a GoFundMe type of vibe. It's more like you don't own the athlete, but more like you're supporting their journey and getting some upside into it. So I've been at NS and not really in the crypto space a lot,
Yeah.
but the tokenization of assets, these athletes could become assets and we could tokenize them essentially. And people could be investing in their token. As their brand value increases, their piece of that pie that they've invested in that athlete can also increase. That's a whole different space that I've looked into since only joining here and could open up more doors for us in the Web3 space. So we're all Web2 and Layer 2. So it's just like, can we navigate that? Because that's where the world is going. And maybe we should.
Yeah, it's very interesting, right? But this is it, right? Is there much competition in this at the minute? Like, what's
There
the,
is,
yeah.
yeah. There's some conglomerate companies out there they have media companies, they have like wearable companies. They basically have 5-6 different companies that they've just eaten up, and now they're spinning off and adding NIL to it. So name, image, and likeness, the valuation piece of it. So they have the funding, they have the resources, they have everything that they need to do, but they don't have, I guess, to be quite honest, the brain power to figure out the algo and figure out the actual valuation piece.
Okay, interesting. Because that's what I was going to say. So against it, like, why are you going to win? You're smarter.
Yes. Yeah.
Say a little bit more then again. So you're saying, so actually, like, there's nuance for someone that doesn't understand. What does NIL stand for again? Something value. What is it?
Name, image, likeness.
Name, image, likeness.
Yes.
What does that even mean? I don't even. That doesn't even make it any clearer to me what that is, right? What is name, image, likeness?
So name, image, likeness is basically how much value does your name, does your image and your branding as well as your likeness give to yourself? So
Right.
how much is James worth as in NIL terms? Like if you were to go to someone and be like, I charge you $5 an hour, would you agree to that or no for consulting? Probably not, because you know your worth, right? And you know it as a number, as like I'm worth $1,000 an hour or $250 an hour. You kind of have a ballpark idea,
Sure.
and that's what the athletes need to know, and they need to kind of figure that out, because we're tuned to know that, or we know how to do that through experience, because we get these deals, we get these opportunities presented to us, and we can kind of figure out that number.
Yeah.
But athletes have zero clue. They're like throwing these brand deals, and they're like, hey, film this video for us and we'll pay you $5. And like, that's not really what your worth is. You're worth $80 because it's going to take you that much time and that much output to make that video. So we do all of that data crunching, and then we basically spit out a number that makes the most sense for the athlete.
Super interesting, super interesting. So that's your moat. Okay, and I do want to jump in very briefly to the the algorithmic trading stuff that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Because okay, you said that you've been finding clients here. Do you want to talk about like what have people been coming to you and going, just like talk about that, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it started out by we were just talking about what we're building in terms of like our algorithmic trading. I've been in the trading space for 6 years. My background's from Goldman, so I've been doing pretty well for myself. Last year, our algo basically was producing like 400% returns on the year. So we've taken that edge in the algo space, but now in the simulated funding space. Basically, that's a whole new space where retail investors can go get funding from companies and then trade that funding and make more capital from it. So what we're doing is basically helping these retail investors accumulate that capital, and from there, once we get that capital, we trade that on their behalf, essentially. Yeah.
Very interesting, because there is like a bit of a melting pot here of people that are like playing with like algorithmic trading here, kind of like NS. It's like it's very interesting. I think there's a lot of people that are thinking about the intersection as well of like applying these LLMs and these new kind of like AI technologies kind of like to the markets, and it feels like there's a bit of a and then again you're finding clients, but I think there's also lots of people that are out there like playing with this sort of like here.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, but they're all in crypto that I found at NS. They're all algo traders, but they're in crypto or they're in another space, but no one's in like the US futures market. Like I've met 3 guys from India, and they're all in the Indian markets. It could be, they're potential investors for us in the future when they come to the fund in June. But they are mostly, none of them are focusing on the biggest market in the world, the US market. I don't know why. They're all everywhere else. They're just, I guess there's more inefficiencies where you can find more alpha. But we're finding it here in the US market, which everyone is like, how the hell have you found alpha in the most efficient engineered market in the world? And like, that's our sauce.
Yeah, no, they're very interesting. So again, like, okay, wind it back or wind it forward if it is like you've been hanging out here for a little while.
Yeah.
Why did you come here and like how has the sort of experience been?
So two things. Have you ever heard of the Bali time chamber?
The Bali
Bali time chamber.
time chamber. No, I
Yeah.
don't even tell me. No.
So I found this on Instagram. I was looking at it. It's 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 meant for just guys. You go to Bali for like a month or 2 months, and you just basically try to reinvent yourself. You work on your business, you work on your health, your fitness, literally, and you're locked in. That's
Right.
literally all you're doing.
Right.
And then I came across NS, and I was like, wait, this is kind of like that. Not
Yep.
to that extreme of only guys and only like just pushing weights and stuff like that. But you also can meet founders, you can meet investors, you can meet all these other things that you can do over here. So I said, let's just make the leap and go and do that. And my goal was to try to find investors, to try to find founders who have raised capital so I can learn from them. Because I've never done it myself. I just bootstrap everything.
Yeah.
And just learn from them and see where we can go.
Do you think you've achieved some of those goals?
Investors, no. But in terms of founders that have raised capital, yes. Like learning from them, met 3 people from YC over here that are like potential. They could make potential intros for us and stuff like that. So it's pretty solid, yeah.
Very, very cool. Okay, so if there is an investor watching here or someone else that's interested in becoming a client, a college maybe that wants to rapidly sign up, where do they find you?
They can find us, so protosphere.com, that's for the sports tech company, and then tradesphereusa.com for the algorithmic trading side of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Pleasure. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for coming on.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Oh, okay. So here we are. So I actually got a little bit of interesting news. If you navigate through to my profile somewhere, you will see a link to actually apply and come to network school kind of like with ARC. And if you go through those links, we actually cover kind of like the first week of your stay. So you end up getting a large kind of like discount for coming here. So have a look through at the profile, go to the link, and please come and join us. But please, next guest, straight in. Markus, mate, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Why are you here?
Why am I here?
Yeah.
At NS. Yeah. So I read Balaji's book a year or two after it came out and found the concept just very interesting, right? Balaji is very good at like frame shifting, getting you to think of, systems that you live in that feel like the water that you're just swimming in.
Sure.
And, we live in, so my background's in like civil engineering, land surveying. This is a field that is very old. Just the technologies and the workflows are very old, but also like working with governments, municipalities, very old systems. So basically just like seeing someone have an idea of like what is the next version, what is the next iteration, what is a digital society, what is a digital city. So I came here to live inside of it and see what this experiment feels like.
And when did you get here, Markus?
I got here on the New Year's, so that's 5 weeks ago now.
It was an interesting time, sort of like to come, right? But yeah, again, so you had you had your background, you're interested in this, and you've actually turned up. Like, what were you expecting, I guess, to come and find, and how has reality been versus those sort of expectations?
Yeah, good question. I think what I expected just from the marketing that we get out on the web was more of like the Brian Johnson arm of the gym, the food, like get good sleep, like we're going to give you this environment where like your body will thrive. And from that baseline, now your mind can thrive, and putting that into a group with like smart, ambitious, curious, compassionate people, then your passions can thrive. So I think being here, all 3 of those stacks have like done a lot for me being here.
I think that's a good sort of like like explanation or summary of almost like what is going on here, right?
Yeah.
Like I talk a lot again, it's like we got this community here of all these people that are working so fucking hard.
Yeah.
As it works so hard, that we're like, basically I feel it's like I'm constantly telling people to go to bed, not to stay up and work more, but it's like,
It's
no,
contagious, yeah.
It's actually a problem, right? It's
Yeah.
actually a problem that we're making it easier for us all to work late. And actually,
Yep.
because what I like about what you said is that like there is this like, there is this infrastructure and this layer here that allows you to sort of like just be healthier, physically healthier, right? And again, it's the way that you put it, right? And it's that on top of that like foundation, you're then able to have like a clear mind and to be able to act better. And so it's like, so I think it's really, I really like being here that you have a bedrock where you can make healthy decisions. You can then actually be much, much higher performance than everything else upstream of that. If you don't let bad habits, form, like, oh God, yeah, no, I love how you sort of kind of like describe this. But okay, so you're planning on hanging around. You've been here, again, you've obviously stayed into sort of like month 2.
Yeah.
It met these sort of initial sort of expectations. Where are you from originally, sir?
From Orlando, Florida. And so I do have plans to go back to the States in March. January, February usually slow in my industry.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to get proposals out for work back in the States.
Yep.
The dream when I came here was to like start to automate some of the work that I do so I can sell software as a service rather than do a lot of the service myself.
And how has that been as well? Were you coding before you had come here?
Well, yeah, a little bit. Like learning Cursor, but coming here, it's every day. Everyone is on Claude Code, everyone's on Cursor, like there's great classes here to learn all of that. And again, on like seeing everyone else doing it, it really makes it easy to like do that work yourself.
And so do you think have you changed your mind? Do you feel that you can that you can do more than when you came, or like
So I work in the civil engineering space, land survey. I do a lot of like drone 3D modeling and digital asset building. And I came here with like a side project I was working on for like a book club platform.
Yep.
And that has like become the passion while I've been here.
Yep.
And in like 2 days this past week, I put together a functional product.
Right, incredible. And this is Lorem.
Lorem, yes.
Exactly, right. You're gonna have to remind me now, like, what's the Latin for lorem ipsum? Like, what does that mean again?
So lorem ipsum is like sort of gibberish. Right?
Okay, it is just gibberish.
Yes.
Even in the Latin, it's gibberish. Okay.
I'm sure it means something.
Okay. Yeah.
But no, the name comes from like when you're setting up a website, you put in lorem ipsum. It's this like placeholder,
Yes.
right? So the platform is a placeholder for you to put in your own text, right? To put in your notes, your highlights, your books, articles that you read. So like you are filling in the content as you use the platform. So that's where the name comes from.
Interesting. And I guess it's like built on some hypotheses you have about the world, kind of like right now. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I join a lot of book clubs. I'm in one now for the Odyssey. We're reading up until the Nolan movie comes out.
Just getting ready to be disappointed
Yes.
at the delta between what was written and what they put on film.
Yeah, I guess. No, we'll see. I think the action sequences will be great. But and then I'm also in a group for like Karl Popper and Open Society and Its Enemies. And I love these discussions so much because like last year I read Tocqueville in a book club, and some of these are like very big, very dense books that are difficult to parse yourself. So reading and discussing them in a group context, I think, gives the individual a much better understanding, not just of the content, but like how it relates to their life, how other people relate it to their life. And you have these, like everyone has their own context that they're reading within. And to like share that in a group, you get like just a much richer understanding of the material. And like books are like the easiest way to do this. But yes, you're asking about like the theory of of I guess the platform. So yes, books first, But humans coming together to discuss in conversation around a central topic, can be about anything, right? It can be about your company, it can be about your family or your community, or even on the level of society. I was actually reading an article this morning about Anthropic has been in Goldman Sachs, basically watching how their managers work to manage like all the people within the organization. And I think that's something that AI is very, very good at, is like aggregating tons and tons of data from individuals, which in like a larger context, a lot of times it's difficult for the preferences and the ideas and the pain points of all the individuals within an organization for all that information to like get its way up to the top. So like in a book club, you're aggregating all of the ideas, all of the personal stories, all of the understanding from the individual up to this group.
Yep.
But I think that same concept can be used in much wider concepts.
Do you know I'm anti-reading?
What, do you like audiobook?
No, I don't. I'm not very good at listening. That's not my forte. No, yeah, no, I'm sure if you scroll down my Twitter far enough, you'll see me. One of my better performing tweets actually about my anti-reading club, or not club, but
Okay.
like in its stance,
I'll
right?
have to go find it.
No. But it's not so much that I have a problem with reading; it's that I don't believe that people can read. And that's why actually I think it's interesting for this, because it's like, look, actually it's like, it feels like people just like want to like tick off these books that they've read so they can say they've sort of like done it, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, I read it in 2 days. And I'm like, even if they can like repeat back to you what they've read, they do not understand it.
Yeah.
So like most people do not understand what they read, and that's my problem with it, and I think that's what's very interesting about what you're sort of like doing there. It's like, the longer it takes you to read something, probably the more useful kind of like it is. And I guess like, yeah, I've not been a member of a book club, but maybe it's a way that I would like actually consuming kind of like a book, because I'd be like, oh, okay, like, we're actually understanding what the intent and the purpose of these words were, as opposed to just like fucking skimming through them as if like it's just like, I don't know, like it's very interesting.
I will say the main thing that like drew me to ARC and wanting to come join here was you hold these public discussions occasionally here within NS. The last one was on, what was it, religion, culture, and law. What are the structures that we govern ourselves by? And like those are a lot of fun for me, but also like I learned so much from everyone else, and get an opportunity to like, I have this worldview about how everything works, and then to sit in the room and like have everyone else, like especially in this context where we have people from all over the world. Yeah. Really learning what, just like how they view the world as well. So I think that's, like reading is good, but I think that's why I'm like focused on the conversations and like bringing out the ideas between the people.
Yeah, it is like a really diverse place here at Network School, like genuinely, right? There are very, very different worldviews. Yeah. And I think there's lots, particularly over the West, lots of things that we maybe just like, if you're not considerate, like the things that you just like take instantly for granted as just like table stakes, like in the West, that are just like not table stakes, And I think that's a really cool thing about kind of like here, right? And it is actually amazing how well everyone gets on.
Yeah.
like there's been no brawls, it's very, particularly given like, again, the topics that we sort of like, that we might discuss, or the things that we're doing, like everyone is very frontier, right? They're frontier people doing frontier things, like they're not the kind of like status quo, sit in a box kind of like typically, right? Like just by being here, like you really, it is almost like a statement, right? So it's kind of very interesting why everyone kind of like, kind of gets on. But I do agree with Laura. I think there's something very interesting if you can build some sort of framework, which is sort of effectively like collecting data from these like individuals in some sort of like shared setting where you can sort of like aggregate information that is then valuable for that group at large, or to some sort of like, other entity that's kind of like connected to kind of like to this. It's very interesting. So again, so you said that you basically came here, have learnt the skills, and have now actually your some sort of V1-ish is ready to go.
V1 is personal highlights and notes and like AI analysis. On a technical level, I need to add some authentication and start putting some groups together. But yeah, one of my goals is to, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, like I won't do a book club because no one will read it here because you're only here for a month. And there's so much going on. So I'm not going to ask people to like spend their precious time to read a whole book. Yeah. But there are a lot of like science fiction short stories, something you can read in 2 hours, that I'm gonna pick one of those and like have a group discussion around.
Or you could do the attention is all you need, would be the Transformer paper. Do you know that one? Do you know that one?
No, I don't.
It's the Transformers which form the basis of the LLMs that right now was actually like a technology kind of like breakthrough in a paper that was like released like now like I don't know 8 years ago, or maybe kind of like longer. It's just sort of interesting. I saw one of the authors of the papers a couple of weeks ago in like a little closed setting, and he was talking. It's just like, it's out of that has come all of these things that we're kind of like building in that world, and it's just the most interesting comment. I'm trying to remember. This is oh god, I'm trying to remember his name. He's the founder and CEO of Cohere as well. It's just sort of like enterprise LLM stuff kind of like right now. But his comment was, I think it's like Adam, or forgive me, but his comment was like, not a single one of the 8 authors on this paper had any idea that it would generate this output, basically, that it would actually become what it has become, that this was even possible. He was like recalling the shock at how like, wait, the machine is talking back to us. And it's just like how just sort of interesting, right? How like, with the gravity of these systems and these things that we are building, that even their inventors had absolutely no idea what would be possible from the things that are being invented, right? Like, it was a really striking comment for me. I was, again, in Davos for a week, and it was like the number one takeaway comment I sort of like have from that. But God, I've gone off on one. Like, why did I start talking about that? Tell me.
I was gonna say we're still feeling that amazement every other day here, aren't we? No, we're talking about like content that would be good for a book club, good for a discussion. And I think that would be really good, because like I was saying, like we are still like being amazed every day. Like there's multiple groups here that are getting together on like Claude and running them and seeing what's possible with these like autonomous agents if you give them enough tools. So
and then there's another session on Claude going on right now. Right? I've stolen you away from that. I kind of like I apologize, but again, so maybe back to experiment here again. I know, because I know that you are very interested in the broader piece that's happening here, and I do also think that like technologies like this can be very interesting for. It's almost like you have a community dealing with a book, right? And then it's like there's almost like is there like some sort of governance structure for that group on that book? And again, it's like, okay, well, actually, is there then like a different structure for a bunch of citizens that are living together over a wider spectrum? And again, it's about like information flows or whatever it is. But I guess like outside of the product that you were explaining at the beginning, with sort of this like physical layer, this mental layer, and this sort of like creative, thriving group of people that are sort of around you here, the kind of like broader experiment, I guess, that kind of like got you interested in the first kind of like place, like 5-6 weeks in now, like how are you feeling about that? Like, what do you think is what do you think's happening here? Like, what's next? What's going on? What's realistic? What's not?
It's it's interesting because every week is different. Every month, because this is a month-based cohort, so every month is different. So it's iterating very quickly. Like one thing I would like to see is more, and part of the product I'm working on is more like input from the community up to the decision makers. I think AI is very good at like sentiment aggregation. Being able to like coax information out of people. If you set a survey, the survey asker has to beforehand know exactly all the questions they want to ask, and they send that out, and there's like other context that they didn't ask a question about. That's just information lost.
Yes.
So that's something I want to work on while I'm here. But in terms of just like how it feels to be here, yeah, I don't know. I guess it sort of feels like we're like on a ship out at sea, and we're like we kind of know like where the land is, and we're like still like trying to point and see like what exactly it's going to look like when we get there. Yeah, and is like so the current iteration of network state to me feels something in between a community, consumer product, a little bit of a government. There's not much of like a government structure. So I think that's a big question mark for me. But in terms of like the personal thriving here, that is working very well.
No, that's good. And then maybe final question, just on your point there. It almost sounds like you're trying to build a system again. It's that there's lots of data and it's able to kind of like synthesize that. But it's like what you're also talking about is like selection and maybe taste, which are often considered like the last bastions of like human endeavor, is being this sort of like taste maker, right? And of the options, selecting the right options, which are what really kind of like matter. Like, is that not an endeavor which is, which we are, which us, our humans are safe from? Are you going to build AI systems that do that as well?
Well, if we build the really good system, then we'll live in the utopia where it builds everything and gives us, exactly what we desire. But no, I think like retaining that skill of like asking good questions and having taste. And I think that comes from experience. I think that comes from like, the diversity of the people here. I think that comes from like holding that sense of like agency of, like knowing what you want and like feeling like you have permission from yourself or the universe to go after it. So maintaining that I think is how we'll maintain our humanity.
No, I love it. I love it. Love it. Okay, so you've joined Art this month. You're going to lock in. Let's hold you accountable. So, like, you're going to run effectively a book club on top of Lorem before the end of the month.
Yes.
And anything else that's going to get done before the end of the month?
I do want to set up that survey system for the team so that we can start to aggregate the desires and the pain points of the people here.
It's great. Well, look, thank you very much for being here again. Appreciate it. And actually, before you run away, tell them, where does someone find you if they want to talk to you about Lorem?
All right. Yeah. Lorem is on loremnotes.com. And that's where it's at right now.
Okay, easy. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
And guys, that's it for kind of like today's session. Again, if you click on my profile, you can come and join us like here at Network School, or come and join us in Montenegro for April and May, where I'm putting on a crazy kind of like European experience of building these new societies and new states. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you again on the next ARC Live.